Hello and welcome to 18 Mile Hike. This is a new visual novel by the Goodnight Fellowship, I believe that was the name. Um, you would have seen it had OBS not decided to cut it off, but whatever. Um, this is the first build and it is made in Unity as opposed to RenPy. So I'm assuming that some of the settings and some of the things are not yet implemented. Like for example, the audio levels. It's kind of loud. Um, also, as far as I am aware of, there is no way to roll back, which makes it a little hard for me to get the lines in properly, but whatever. I'm just gonna have to do a straight read-through. Also, as far as I am aware of, there is no way to save. I mean, it says load, but I think when I was playing it, there wasn't any way to save it. But whatever. So I'm just gonna do a straight read-through. Anyway, so what this visual novel is about is these 6 characters who are keeping a tradition alive from their family members where they go and hike for a while and then tell, I believe, scary stories. But these are more... Well, they're varying degrees of scary story. Some of them might be like the traditional horror type of visual, not visual, the traditional type of horror story where it's like, oh, there's ghosts and stuff like that. But one of them might be more sort of like a suspense type of story where it's like, oh, there's a stalker and like, oh, that was like suspense and stuff like that. And each one will be telling their own story. For now, I believe that it is actually the one with the little, like, the one with the stars in their eyes. She will be the one that's going to be telling the story first. And this visual novel will be updated, I think, bi-monthly. So you'll be seeing this one, then you might be seeing some update for the smoke room, and then maybe you won't see an update for either of them, but then you'll see this one again, and then maybe the smoke room again, etc., etc. And yeah, the smoke room. This is George's new studio group. Yeah. No, there will not be any NSFW stuff. This is a strictly safe for work visual novel, despite the fact that there will be horror. What I did skim through, I did kind of like the way that it was presenting the stories, but you'll see that, as I decide to finally just shut up and read. Anyways, but yeah, so without further ado, let us begin 18 Mile Hike. I guess the first story is called A Gift from Afar. "18 miles isn't too big a distance when you think about it in a certain way. 60 miles per hour is a common speed on most highways. Most people can probably say that they've driven at that speed for 18 minutes. But hiking that distance is another situation entirely. You can get lost or injured. Ordinary sickness, which would be no big of a deal in the comfort of your home, can compromise your safety in the middle of nowhere. My and Theodore's grandparents and their friends did this every day for a month in the summer back in the 70s. They created a secret society of naturalists who told stories. Horror stories specifically. My grandmother said that they picked up the idea from Mary and Percy Shelley, who would tell the tales of terror at their dinner parties. But when I used to ask my grandfather, he would just stare off out in the window, like he did when he was in the middle of an argument. Telling ghost stories goes back even further than the time of the Shelleys. I think that's what he would have said if he had the gumption to start another argument with her. But there might have been more to it than that. You alright, big guy? Yes, short man. Hey! Fine. Medium-sized man. Lighten up. You're a bit tense. You haven't seen the other hikers for months. Because I know that they're going to be annoying. But the stories are always worth it. Right? They're sometimes worth it. If Courtney tells a story about celestial rocks that help you find a ghost husband again, I'm out. Oh, come on. Everybody has an off day. Well, mine feels like they're getting more and more frequent. I will make you go tonight, then. So who's going? Spoilers. Do not quote Super Hulock shit at me. I'm already heterophobic enough. I just want to hold you in suspense a bit, that's all. That's my job as president, right? I'm just wondering if this was the right thing to do. Why wouldn't it be? We all keep coming back to do this for our own reasons. I don't know, bro. It's been 8 months since I've seen the others. I promise that they didn't change much. I haven't seen Nils since he left for college. He's still crazy. But, still nice enough to let Aaron and Parker camper in his woods. Those are really expensive. It's more trust than I'd lend a lot of people, true. I guess since she's rich, she doesn't worry too much about those things. He's taking good care of it, so she must trust him enough. Oh, there's a turn. That one? Yeah, here we go. My car rumbles and shakes as the asphalt transitions to the dirt road. A canopy of trees blocks out the sky. After 10 minutes of travel, Thomas tells me to stop, and we can see an orange glow out in a field. The smell of dead leaves, damp mud, and dewy bark hangs about in the air. The oak and pine trees on Nils' old family property bring back memories of the childhood chants, Boy Scout patrol verses which he and Thomas sang in unison that used to ricochet through the woods just as sacred as any psalms. Embers glow in the distance. Looks like they already got the kindling started. We see the silver fox in REI gear and the dog with pink ribbons in her hair, chatting away while the light in the camper casts them in a golden glow. Hark, wayward fellows! The fox and the dog look up, her waving as she goes into the woods with an axe, him standing up, walking over to approach us. Call me Ishmael. The fox looks at him like he's a soldier guarding his post. I'm just gonna call you gay. Why, sir, your words wound me. Bleeding from the carnage, really. Kindly tend to my wounds, would you? All I have to do is remove my shirt. I can get those hoes first, since you're so flaming that you're practically on fire. I'm just so dirty, Nils. You're just a muddy little man. Y'all doing this shit is why I never joined the Boy Scouts. Gays aren't allowed in the Boy Scouts, Barry. Except for the part where there were so many. You're both gay enough for a whole troop, I imagine. As if marching band was any better. Yeah, Barry. Didn't you play the flute? I played the baritone sax and the tuba. So in other words, instruments dedicated to developing the skill of blowing. More so doing a hell of a lot of coordinated stunts. And learning to take orders. Still sounds gay. Gayer even. I am gay because I have sex with men. You are gay because you get boners from liquor and cereal mascots. We are not the same. That was just one time. And that Jägermeister deer has a very defined bulge. Gentlemen, gentlemen. Calm yourselves, please. We was only funnin'. If we all learn to laugh easy, it means that we'll stay young forever. Yeah, sure it will. Anyways, it's good to see you brought Bax the Max back. Hi. Bax is back? The dog wearing pink ribbons returns from the woods and crouches to put logs down on a pile. Oh, yay! I miss his history lessons. Thanks, Courtney. I think I should do a cheer for you now that you're back. You don't have to do a cheer for me. I'm doing a cheer for you. Who's that guy? A one-man band? Drum so loud that he quakes the sand? Stop. Bax the Max. Stop. Beats struck meaner than anthrax? Woo! The whole group starts clapping. But seriously, Baxter, it's been too long. I miss your stories. She always was as sweet as honey. I like her a lot. I just can't stand her stories. Thanks. I've been practicing just for you. Why me? Because I know that you're my toughest critic. Nils and Thomas hoot together like she just got me with a sick burn. Who snitched? Your own expressions. Oh, come on. I always knew. I'm just not a big on romance, alright? I don't think that it goes that well with horror. It's okay to be wrong. They're hooting again. Whatever. Fuck it. Is Alicia here? She's inside doing her nails. Is she gonna come out and say hello? When she's perfect? The gecko's stern voice calls from out of the window. I guess... Is that Erin? Isn't here then? She should be back soon. She went to get snacks 30 minutes ago. As if on cue, a silver pickup truck rolls up to the field. We see the owl in tech gear hop out of her truck and walk towards the rest of us, holding a bag of groceries in one hand and a big drone in the other. She stops when she sees me. Baxter? Hey, Erin. Tom, you son of a bitch! I thought you were kidding. The truth only feels like a joke until it reveals itself. Oh, what a load. I would have brought out the nice beer if I knew that you'd be back tonight, Baxter. It would have been a hell of a lot easier if we did this in town. Maybe we ought to consider a restaurant next time. You know, like most people our age. Maybe we can work something out like that later. Why didn't you just leave your camper at your place? Well, I can't exactly host a bonfire at my apartment. And I like the outdoors. Apparently. See, that's the kind of stuff that I mean. The Erin that I used to know used to be on her computer all the time. Well, I am an ecologist now. I can bring the computer with me and be outside. A shrill scream from inside the camper tears through the night. The door bursts open at the gecko and giant hoops and maximalist clothing appears. Bitch! She laughs, screams again, and comes running towards Erin, hugging her and kissing her once on both cheeks. It's been too long. I know. You got Baxter to come back too. That would be my work. Who cares? Everyone's here. Technically, I didn't leave. I'm still in town. Shit's just been crazy. Oh, you don't have to defend yourself. I'm always up to date on what crazy things are going on, and there's frankly too much. You still running that true crime broadcast? You know it. I thought that was your side hustle. Nah, I'm about to get my master's in library science. I used to be able to put out a video monthly, but the research sometimes takes more time than I expected to. True crime's overrated anyway. Overrated? Yeah. Who wants to get bummed out about stuff that you can hear on the news when you can, talk about myths and monsters? Simple. Real things scare me more than fake things. There's nothing more real than exploitation. That's why we should tell more stories about vampires and Bigfoot. Back to the basics. There's nothing scary about a big fake monkey in the woods. Isn't it a little fucked, though, to make real people who commit atrocities into video creepy tales? Well, yeah. Good true crime is about the bravery and the perseverance of the victims, not the glorification of the criminals. Stories by survivors, for survivors, who expose a lot of these criminals for who they really are. That is, massive fucking idiots who get their asses caught. It's plain as day when you rip away all the mystique and the romance that these shitty podcasts and documentaries have built up over it. But consider this about cryptids. What if you went your whole life thinking something was fake only to find out that it wasn't? Doesn't apply to big feats. You ever met one? Can't say that I have. There we go. Seriously? The idea is a lot scarier when you go by yourself into the woods and you're surrounded by nature. Anything can be made scary by the right atmosphere. But killers are real. A big monkey is not. It's not even a good idea. Feral monkeys are terrifying. They're curious. They get into things. The idea that there's something that can be studying you, staring at you, messing with you, and stalking you without you knowing is the core of the actual fear. I agree that it's a scary situation to be in. Because it can actually happen. By a person. Not a big monkey. Big monkeys are real, though. Okay, but it's not personally scary to me. Because I don't think that I'm ever going to be in that situation. Everybody starts to talk over one another as the energy gets more boisterous until a loud buzzing sound makes them all stop. Aaron's drone starts to hover before lifting into the sky. Is that really necessary? Afraid so. We're still technically not supposed to be out here, right? I thought you said Nils' family let us be out here. It always spooks me a little when she turns that thing on. They did. But we're going through a bit of a property dispute right now. It's a bunch of bullshit about the original shape of the acreage. But it's best not to fuck with the country boys who don't have enough corn to chuck, if you know what I mean. I absolutely don't know what you mean. If they're bored and have guns, that's all that I need to hear. Guns? Those kill people. We have one too, right? Can I use it if we have to shoot somebody? Ugh, y'all. These are just rude hunters, not Texas Chainsaw Massacre people. If they shoot us, it would be an accident. So let's not go out alone and do anything stupid. Right. The drone will see anything coming. Now then. The earlier conversation leads fairly well into the story that I'm going to tell tonight. Oh, so she's going to be the one that is telling the story. Alicia argued that things based on reality are scary. But what if you can't tell if a threat is human or inhuman? Does that matter in the end? If something's coming after you? There's a story that I've heard before. Supposedly it happened to a girl who attended my university grad department. She didn't go missing or anything, but she had a lot of stress and thinks about the story a lot. Let's call the story A Gift from Afar. Natalie Bainan, Lisa Newton, and Renee Schaefer filled the Waffle House with their chatter at 2 a.m., which was the only appropriate time to be in a Waffle House. The three young women were traveling south together over their fall break at their college to visit their families. Their families all lived 4 states away. It was at least a 2-day drive back home from their college, so they took plenty of stops at roadside attractions and diners along the way. Over the years, Natalie had gotten into the geocache scene during these little trips. Lisa and Renee weren't as into the concept, but they didn't complain about letting Natalie stop at odd parking lots and old bridges to take 15 to 20 minutes and swap an item that she found in random boxes. At least, if the item was relatively safe to take. "So, how many boxes have you stopped at throughout the years?" said Renee before taking a hearty sip of her milkshake. Natalie pursed her lips and looked away, trying to think, while Lisa flicked through the feed on her phone. "I think 237? Renee's eyes widened as she slurped the bottom of her shake. Natalie plucked the phone out of her pocket to check her notes. 238, actually. Renee chirped out a laugh. "How do you find the time for all of this?" Lisa looked up from her phone and crossed her arms before replying. That's what I'd like to know too, since she's usually too busy for tennis and all." "Oh, come on. It's been a hard semester." Natalie patted her shoulder. Lisa rolled her eyes. "Tennis, is that taxing?" Natalie laughed a little nervously. It isn't. But I just need some alone time to clear my head. Plus, it's easier than you think to find boxes like this all over the campus. People tell you where to look, and it mixes things up whenever you want to go for a jog." Renee butted up into this train of thought with a twirling finger, grinning. "So, what sort of rules do you have to follow with these boxes you find?" By now, Natalie knew the rules of geocache like the back of her hand. She knew that you seek out your mark in a location that you like to visit, using the coordinates that your local sites or clubs can give you. Once you're there, you identify the camouflage location of the cache. Next, you sign the logbook that the original planter left. Finally, you take what's there, and then you leave something of equal value behind, or, ideally, something better. Renee interjected again. "How exactly is that decided anyway?" Natalie chuckled a bit nervously. How's what decided?" Renee clarifies. "You know, the value of something." Natalie thought this was a fair question. "I always figured that it was a bit personal, though there should always be some objective value taken into account." Renee cringed a bit. If somebody leaves something as special as a rare geode, it's not exactly the best form to leave a poem, is it? That made Natalie laugh. "Right, exactly." With a curious look, Renee asks, "So, what do you plan to leave behind in this next box?" Natalie's eyes twinkled in the light as she plucked a little guitar on a keychain from her pocket. It had a barcode printed on it. "Meet my travel bug." "What's that?" "It's another thing that you can put into a capsule. It has a website and everything." "What's on the website?" Natalie turned the keychain over to show the other side. "People can see the goal that I set for the bug and log where they've taken it. There is a way to track how many miles that it's been, too." Renee smiled. "Was that part of your goal for this one?" "You got it. I wrote that I wanted this one to go at least 24,850 miles before it comes back to me." "Why that much?" "Well, because that's the circumference of the Earth. And if I figured that I can't travel all around the world, then it would be nice if at least something that I own does." Renee snorted. "Girl, that's so damn corny." "Oh, come on. It'll be cool to see where it goes, if it takes off." "And what if it doesn't?" "Then I guess I'll have to buy a new one and try again." "How much are these things?" $5. "So why do you want to go there?" The once quiet Lisa said a bit suddenly, before she bit into her spicy chicken sandwich. Her question hung in the air, like it was caught up on the coffee aroma that permeated the tidy little diner. Lisa felt that, for the most part, this was a safe and healthy hobby. Except for the fact that this cache was there. Natalie shrugged. "We're passing by. Plus, I just wasn't expecting to find a cache there, of all places. And not just any cache, a time-sensitive event cache. The website advertising them had a few of those from time to time, but she'd never been able to find one on time, or make it to a parcel before the links expired. Lisa tilted her head and gave her a side look, then put her sandwich down on the wrapper. Natalie knew why. Lisa wasn't bothered about the idea of a cache hunt. She was bothered by the location. The defunct stone quarry near Highway 42. It wasn't particularly dangerous or anything. They just had a lot of bad memories about the place. Ordinary things, a bad breakup, some tense field trips in biology class to see the eels that bred in the flooded pools, one where a classmate broke her leg and another where a student riled a wasp nest and had to get stabbed with an EpiPen before being hauled off by an ambulance. Little moments in the grand scheme of things that added up to a miasma hanging over the place. We'll be in and out. Lisa rolled her eyes. You'll be going by yourself. I'll be staying at the motel. She took another bite of her sandwich while she looked in the direction on her phone. Her brow furrowed. Plus, it will be dark by the time that we get there. So, I'll get it when it's dark. Lisa shot her another look. Natalie knew that most people were scared of the dark, at least a little bit. After all, didn't it make some degree of sense? It was sensible for people since before the Stone Age. Most carnivorous animals were nocturnal hunters. People who had the impulse to stay inside after dark would live longer and pass that fear onto their children. Those scared kids would become living adults. And, as shelter improved, that fear became less practical, but it stuck with many people all the same. She was certainly no exception. But she did not fear the outdoors at night, certainly not in the same way that she feared opening a dark closet to see the pale eyes and white teeth of something staring back at her. She always thought that she'd have a better chance of surviving a wild animal while alert and awake, maybe losing it by ducking into the grass or by climbing a tree while using all the noises of the woods to her advantage, rather than walking up to something looming over her bed in the middle of the night, or jumping out of a closet, waking up to something. Fine, just keep your phone on you. They finished their food and prepared themselves for the long drive. On the way, they passed plenty of narrow and old bridges and rust-tinged farmhouses. The road became rougher when it was time to take the correct turn. Natalie thought the road to the motel used to be a lot smoother on this side of the Appalachians. There were potholes that they had to drive around, and weeds and bristle branches that snapped off of dead trees and littered what was left of the long, neglected asphalt. The motel was still as they remembered it, ordinary, clean, and orderly. But its design stuck firmly in the early 70s. They remembered the attendant too. They didn't know his name, but they remembered his face. They always figured that he owned the hotel, but they never asked. Card. He held out his hand to them with an impatient tone in his voice. Lisa was willing to cover this one. The attendant was quick about the charge and handed her back her card, along with a little paper envelope that held key cards. Lisa tilted her head. Don't you want to check our IDs? The man shook his head. Transaction worked. Natalie cut in. We're just used to people asking. We've been traveling. I trust you both. No names. Lisa sent Natalie a look, but she shook her head. Thank you. We'll be staying out of your way. The old man nodded, his lips thinning. There's a phone in the room if you need anything. The hotel rooms were like they remembered them to. The same beige wall sconce, the same earth-toned pastel landscapes that looked like washed-out homages to Norman Rockwell. Lisa threw down her backpack on the bed and sunk into the chair. Well, that was strange. Natalie bit her lip. So, what was up with that guy? Lisa shrugged. He's probably one of those old guys who thinks that it's still fine to keep your front door unlocked. Natalie shook her head. No, I don't think that was it. He seemed like he was on edge when you suggested showing him your ID. Usually it's the other way around. That's what I'm saying. Lisa plucked out her phone from her pocket and started scrolling. You're the one that wanted to come here. Natalie wrung her hands. Yeah, I know. We can leave if you want. But you already paid for the room. I'd rather lose $100 than deal with some Norman Bates shit. Natalie rolled her eyes. That's not what I meant when I said that it was weird. Then what did you mean? He didn't seem creepy to me. He just seemed like his mind was on something else. I hope that you're right. We stayed here before in high school. Not alone. You sure you don't want to come look after the cash with me? Yeah, I'm sure. Okay, I'll text you every 30 minutes. Okay. When Natalie got to the front desk, she noticed that the receptionist wasn't there. Considering it was well past 8 p.m., she figured that it wasn't that weird. But she did wonder. It wasn't completely dark outside. The sodium lights in the parking lot and the little pub across the street made the beginning of the trail look later in autumn than it usually was. The trail was more rocky and weedy than she remembered. She had figured that students would still trek up here to look at the biodiversity of the flooded dig sites, but it was a lot weedier than she remembered. Once she saw something in the distance, the memory started flooding back. There was a stone sculpture with columns and a dolmen up ahead. The columns had faces carved into them, old faces which looked like bearded people, except with slightly wrong proportions, either exaggerated by the artists who put them there, or weathered down and warped by rain over the decades. They gave her the same nostalgic feeling that abstracted animals crafted out of logs could, or depictions of the Green Man cavern onto trees, carved. There were lots of little notes and photos taped onto the stone, some so old that she was surprised that they were still there. Messages like, Class of 2013 baby, this rock is 4 out of 5 stars, Tenderfoot today, Emmett Strange comes in peace. She was smiling until the last one. Something about reading that name gave her goosebumps. The same kind of feeling that you get when you see somebody spill something on accident in the library. Something that gives you an innate sense of wrongness when you see it. She sighed and then figured that she'd spent enough time scrolling down memory lane. Scrolling. She checked her phone again. The coordinates for the cache weren't exactly lined up with the stone sculpture. They were off to the side beneath a big oak tree. The message on the website said to check the bark. Eventually, she found a knot that wobbled when she touched it. She jiggled it and pushed it up, feeling it detach from the tree. The back of the bark had a hook nailed into it, and it was covering up a much larger tree hollow. Inside there was stuck an older-looking bark capsule. This was it. But as her hand slid over the capsule, she stopped. She heard something. There weren't any bugs chirping either. Now she had a reason to feel nervous. That meant that she wasn't alone. She turned around and gasped. There was a deer standing less than 3 feet away from her. It was one of the larger deer she'd seen, and seemed to be sticking its neck out at her in curiosity. And then she started to laugh, backing up. This didn't mean that she was safe, after all. Deer could be plenty territorial, and their hooves could be sharp. She knew of a couple of campers who had survived deer attacks but needed stitches. At least it wasn't a person. And after a few sniffs, it turned away and wandered off back into the woods. She didn't want to waste any more time with this capsule. It twisted off fairly easily with a little pop, and a notebook and a bag of Skittles fell out of it. Well, that was a disappointment. Natalie knew that it wasn't the best form for anybody to leave candy in a geocache. Well, she figured that it was true, that packaged candy could have a long enough shelf life to be fine, but if you left it there long enough, bugs or animals could get into it. She couldn't see it that well with her phone flashlight, but the candy wrapper looked like it had lost its coloring. It was time to flip through the logbook to see who was responsible for this. Just somebody named Spiffy. They didn't even list that they put in a pack of Skittles. Amateur mistake, figured Natalie. Spiffy was ruining it for everyone. Above that name was Jackie Sutherland. The item that she logged as leaving was a lump of pyrite. Natalie groaned. That was way cooler. She looked at the little pack of Skittles and pursed her lips. Then she pocketed it. She replaced it with a travel bug and signed her name into the little logbook with the pen chained to it. She placed it back into the capsule and sealed it, and slid it into the little nook. When Natalie got back to the hotel lobby, she slid her keycard against the door. But it wouldn't open. In fact, it didn't even seem to register at all. Oh no. She didn't want to have to make her friends come down and let her in, but she figured that she might have to. Renee wouldn't mind, but Renee went to sleep early and was known to ignore text if she was too into what she was watching. She wouldn't dare text Lisa over something like this, because Natalie felt that she was already skating on thin ice with her as it was. She thought that it was weird for a hotel to lock up this early, considering that it was only 9:30, and they had given her a key card. Right when she was about to text Renee, the receptionist showed up down the hall and walked towards her to open up the door. Oh, thank you. What were you doing out there? Natalie blinked. She was surprised to be asked that, considering that it wasn't really his business. Plus, there was a pub across the street. She could have told him that she was drinking, and a lot of people must have probably told him that over the years. She figured that maybe that's why he looked so sour right now. His relationship with the pub owner might be strained if drunk guests made problems for him on the regular. But she didn't want to be kicked out of the hotel in the middle of the night if he decided to act strangely. So she played along. Just a little walk to the quarry. To her surprise, that only made him look more tense. You didn't leave your name anywhere, did you? That question was a little too specific. She was reaching into her pocket now, reaching for her phone. Why? There's fairies out there. Oh, it's a joke. Fairies? She cracked a smile, but he didn't. Yes, fairies, and all sorts of unholy things that walk the earth when the conditions are right. Natalie sighed. If it wasn't a joke, then it was probably some sort of neg that he pulled on visitors that he didn't trust. I'm no stranger to folklore, but it's rural Appalachia, a bit farther from the rolling hills of Europe. The man gave her a solemn nod. Wherever there's fruiting mushrooms and damp moss, there's fairies, miss, especially in places that they've been growing for a long time. And the trees here, they're old. The men who cut into the ground cut deep and took the stone liberally. We shouldn't be surprised that they'd want to keep taking the things we own. Natalie wasn't sure what to make of this conversation, but she didn't want to be rude. I'll take your warning to heart. Never eat anything that they give you either. I don't think that I would, but thanks for the tip. When Natalie got back to her room, she told Lisa and Renee her story. Lisa's face twisted into a look of abject disgust, while Renee's brow furrowed, giving Natalie a look of quiet amusement. Oh god, I told you that he was a weirdo. He had that look about him. Sure, he might be weird, but I didn't get that feeling that he's harmful. Ugh, I told you this place was fucked. Something bad always happens when we come here. I bet he is harmful, said Renee, then jerked her head at Lisa. Just maybe not in the way that she thinks he is. Lisa narrowed her eyes and tilted her head at Renee while she shook her head. We should ask him in the morning if he sells t-shirts or crystals. Natalie crossed her arms. I didn't get the impression that he was trying to sell me anything either. Renee looked into her eye. Renee looked her in the eye. You never do. Then she tilted her head back and forth to accentuate her point. And then that's when they try to sell you something. He just kept getting really insistent on me not leaving my name anywhere. Lisa turned her head sharply back to the conversation. That's why he wouldn't take any of our personal information earlier. He doesn't want our names. Renee made a face like something smelled bad in the room. Damn. Either he's really committed to this bit, or he really does believe what he's saying. She shook her head. That would be strange. But then again, I've heard stranger. Sometimes there is a grain of truth to these things. Or he's just a freak. Also plausible. I don't think he's a freak. I think he's just old. Renee started laughing. The way that you said that was so fucking blunt. I wasn't trying to be mean. Sure. I just meant that I think it's interesting how some people can still believe in this stuff. Everybody these days is so skeptical about something magical or fantastical. Lisa gave Natalie a look. It's nice until somebody shows up in your room with an axe unannounced, dressed as Peter Pan. Renee howled with laughter. Oh, whatever. Meow. Natalie rolled her eyes. I'm gonna take a shower and then we can go to bed. Lisa crossed her arms. Like it's gonna be easier for me to sleep now. Natalie knew Lisa was just being dramatic. She knew that by the time that she'd be done with the shower, Lisa would be stuck looking through TikTok, makeover videos, thinking about how to try out new designs. And she was right. She was laughing and smiling with Renee again, like she thought that she'd be. At least her mood would pick up once they took off and were out of here in the morning. Since Lisa had paid for the room, she got one whole bed to herself. Natalie and Renee shared. Renee was a snorer, but it was light enough to not be a problem, especially when she remembered to put on her nasal strip. They turned out the lights and pulled over the covers, and Natalie let her eyelids droop until she felt them snap open again. The inside of the room was dark enough to still be in the middle of the night. A sense of anxiety washed over her for some reason. It was hard to breathe, and she couldn't move. She had the feeling that she was being watched, and it was coming from the corner of the room by the door. Panic set in when she saw somebody standing in the dark. It was big enough to be an adult, but she couldn't see any details past the faint movement of swaying cloth and a glint of something. She thought that it was possible that this person could be Renee until she heard the soft, slow snoring beside her. It could be Lisa, but she couldn't turn her head to look, and even if she could, she didn't want to move. If she moved, then whoever it was wouldn't know that she was awake, which meant that whoever it is might rush towards her. If they had a weapon, she'd be at a disadvantage. But not being able to move was already a disadvantage. So she closed her eyes again, hoping that it was her imagination, or Lisa sleepwalking, or maybe even a waking dream. She was so exhausted that slept took her again shortly. Sleep. And when she woke up, she was fine. Lisa was making a pot of complimentary hotel coffee in an undersized carafe, and Renee was brushing her teeth in the bathroom. Natalie looked at the corner, but there was nobody there. She jumped out of bed and ran to the hotel door, opening it. Natalie! She ignored Lisa's call and jingled the handle. It didn't feel loose, and there was no sign of damage. Girl, get back in here. You're in your PJs. She closed the door and then turned on her phone's flashlight and dropped to the floor. Nobody was under the bed. What are you doing? Natalie whipped her head with the back of her hand and paced. Then she faced Lisa, wiped her head. Did any of you have trouble sleeping last night? Lisa gave her a look. I thought that I would, but no. Renee shook her head. Slept like a baby. I know, I heard you snoring. Well, you don't have to make it personal. I meant that I woke up. She wanted to say that somebody woke her up, but then again, she figured that it could have been a dream. She didn't want to freak any of them out about the possibility of a room invader if nothing actually happened. Or if it was just Lisa sleepwalking like she used to, and she didn't want to embarrass her. Should we be concerned about something? I think a cricket or a frog or something just got inside. That stupid thing was going off at night. Renee's brow furrowed and Lisa cringed. I don't want to think about that kinds of bugs that we'd find here if we looked too hard. Can we just go? Yeah. Mind if I drive? Renee phrased that question more like it was a statement. You don't look like you'd do so good behind the wheel today. Yeah, I think that would be wise. Lisa got Natalie to pack up pretty quickly, but Renee wasn't the fastest packer. Natalie felt the hair on the back of her neck raise when she passed the receptionist's desk, but the man seemed to have very little interest in looking at them or communicating with them aside from a curt nod and a tap on the hanging bin to put their key cards in. They packed the car as Renee sighed. They used to serve complimentary breakfast. They probably don't get enough people anymore to bother. Natalie stared a bit at the motel. It was still just a plain old motel that she had stayed in for years, but she remembered that awful shine of the eyes that seemed too wet and fabric that moved slightly wrong and chewed on her nail. But they piled into the car and took off. Nothing had happened yet. She figured nothing would happen. She even checked the back seat and the trunk of the car very thoroughly, in case anybody had decided to sneak in, like all those urban legends that she had read about. They rode for a full 30 minutes without anything happening at all. Can we stop at a Bojangles or something? I'm starving. The closest thing looks like a Shoney's. Don't disrespect me like that. Lisa rolled her eyes. Natalie was still too anxious to eat, so she didn't weigh in. She wanted to get her mind off of this. Her mind wandered back to the woods and the little cache in the quarry that she had visited. She knew that it was way too soon to check if anybody had gotten a hold of her travel bug, but she wanted to check it regardless. She loaded the website on her cell phone. To her surprise, there was an entry. 0.37 miles. The timestamp for the comment was 3:30 a.m., 10/3/2022. There were coordinates given to the location the bug had traveled to. Her eyes widened a bit because she recognized them, but she had to be sure. When the coordinates, Natalie dropped her phone. Careful, said Lisa as she grabbed it. Why are you looking up the motel again? It looks like somebody found my bug. Rain spattered on the windshield as brown and gold leaves were pushed aside by windshield wipers. I guess it could have been picked up by somebody staying at the hotel with us? Or the guy who owned it? Lisa had put on the voice that she had put on when she thought that she was right. She was idly evening out her lipstick, looking into her little hand mirror. But what if she was right? After all, he did have the place locked up, she thought. What if he was following me? And he had access to the rooms at night too. But we saw his face. Even if he was a pervert, he wouldn't be so stupid to... Stupid to what? Asked Lisa. Yeah, that's a real cliffhanger, Natalie. The rain picked up again. Well, I can't be sure of what I saw last night. Renee cleared her throat. You've been real skittish, Natalie. And I'm gonna be real. You're giving me chills. Natalie inhaled and then blew off a puff of air. I think I saw somebody staring at us in the room last night. Renee pulled the car over. You mean like a person? Natalie, why the hell didn't you say anything? I thought that it could have been a dream, or you just sleepwalking. I know when I sleepwalked, Natalie. I tend to wake up somewhere that I shouldn't. What do you mean that you think that it could have been a dream? I had sleep paralysis. You can't move during sleep paralysis. You're still going through REM sleep while you're partially awake. Reality and dreams get mixed up. They both strained their necks to look at her. I didn't want to say anything because I knew that you'd both freak out. Sometimes it's okay to freak out, but this is freaky. Natalie's phone buzzed in Lisa's hand. She looked to the screen and then back to Natalie. It updated. What did? Your travel bug page. What's it say? 27.34 miles. Timestamp? 11:34 a.m. 10/3/2022. Renee took off her sunglasses as she poked the hyperlink to the coordinates on the phone's screen. That's the road that we're on. All three of the girls looked at the road. He'd be coming from that direction. Do you see any vehicles? No, but I don't plan to. Renee shifted gears and then hit the gas, pushing Lisa and Renee backwards. After 10 minutes of driving over 80 miles per hour, the phone buzzed again. What's it say? 34.32 miles, 11:39 a.m. He's gotta be moving just as fast as us. I think he's trying to close the distance. The phone buzzed again. 44.32 miles, 11:55 a.m. The phone buzzed again. 50.34 miles, 12:01 p.m. Jesus, he's going fast. You gotta go faster, Renee. There's too many curves up ahead. If we crash, we're as good as dead. Natalie took her phone back from Lisa and opened the road map. If we make a detour, there's no way that this guy should be able to follow us. There's a fork on the road. Let's turn there. What if it's a dead end? It's not. There's intersections. We can lose him. We just shouldn't stay on the highway. The turn led them through a small town with cobbled streets. It looked like the kind of town tucked away on purpose that only railroad stations pass through. They ducked into a small diner with a modern industrial look to it. Lisa and Natalie weren't hungry, but Renee ordered enough food for the three of them. The phone buzzed again. 62.21 miles, 12:32 p.m. Renee and Lisa looked at Natalie. But where is it? Natalie glanced. Still on the highway. Renee sighed in relief, while Lisa rubbed her eyelids. Something like this always happens when we go to that place. Nothing like this has. They've gotten progressively worse, Natalie admitted. That place is fucking cursed. Look, I know you hate the quarry and I'm sorry about that, but the truth is that I still don't. I hope that you do now. I still don't. I do hate creeps who chase me though. The phone buzzed again. Natalie picked it up to look. Another entry, more coordinates. The pictures shown was the outside of the diner that they sat at. Is he here? Natalie held up her finger to keep quiet. Outside of their window, they saw a parking lot full of at least 30 cars. They all knew that their pursuer could be in any of them. Do you think that he'll come in here? Not unless he has a weapon, I don't think so. What I want to know is how the hell he's tracking you with that bug. Renee tilted her head. So, what is he tracking us with? And that's when Natalie felt like a complete idiot and grabbed at her jacket pocket. The Skittles. She took them out of her pocket and held them up close. It wasn't the right color of red, and even the letters seemed wrong. Vittles. The font of the S's were wrong, on the packaging too, and the candy looks more like a hexagon than smooth droplets coated in waxy shells. She tore open the package and an assortment of little gem-shaped candies fell out. They were more like gummies, but tougher, and had a pleasant aromatic scent to them. The hell is a Vittles? Looks like something from a prank shop. Natalie wanted to agree with them, but couldn't. There was an uncanny sense of wrongness to them that didn't seem like an intentional joke, more like a bad attempt at replication that was genuinely trying to come across as appealing. Should I eat one? Natalie shook her head. They could be drugged or poisoned, or there's probably a tracking chip in these candies, or the wrapper. She pounded her fist on the table. This is how he's been getting to me. Think that we can leave them without him seeing us? Well, he'll think that we're still inside, if I'm right. They sneaked on one by one, back to the car and took off, leaving the Vittles and their orders behind. When they got in the car, the phone buzzed again. It was coming from the inside of the diner now. That's when they took off. Renee went over 90 for the first 5 minutes and eventually slid back away from them. The phone buzzed again. It was still in the diner. An hour later, the phone buzzed again. It had gone in a different direction than they were going. It buzzed again 5 minutes later. Only now it was further away. The girls whooped and hollered. They had lost him, or her, or whoever it was who was chasing them. Lisa was wringing her hands with joy, and Renee was hooting and hollering, shaking her head and yelling out the window while Natalie just stewed a bit. Geocaches were her thing. Most people put their good faith and creativity into their hauls. They were something that she had found out about all on her own and gave her something else to think about beyond strained friendships or high-stakes exams. She didn't want them to be ruined forever by one terrible experience. Renee said that she'd be happy to ride back to college with her, but needed some time alone before going on the road again. Lisa said that she'd be taking a bus from now on, which Natalie figured was fair. She even invited her. Thought it would be safer with more people around. But Natalie knew that she needed a degree of freedom. Fall faded into winter and blossomed into spring. Natalie had long since disabled the buzzing on her phone for that particular travel bug, but she couldn't stop herself from looking on occasion. In a perverse sort of way, the bug was still doing its intended goal. She did want one of her possessions to walk the earth while she was cooped up in a dorm studying her in her early 20s away. The person with the bug had been at all 50 states, to Middle America, to South America. She was amazed by how far whoever had this would go. But she stopped at the last update. The previous coordinates were listed as somewhere in Rio just a week ago. This one was outside of her dorm. 11:34 a.m. 4/5/2023 was early last time, halfway done. There's no way that really happened. For once, I agree with the squirt. Squirt? So the thing that I want to know. So, was it a guy or was it a monster? Does it matter? If it supposedly happened, absolutely. Because that means somebody has to face some culpability. Might be hard to put in a fairy in prison. I hear that they're supposed to be weak to iron. You're all gonna go into the woods with a cast iron pot and a strainer, and then find yourselves a real ass man. Maybe he's hot. Or a serial killer. Both? Alright, let's douse the fire. Way ahead of you. And that was the end of the first story, I suppose. 18-Mile Hike is made possible thanks to players like you. Consider supporting Goodnight Fellowship on Subscribestar. So yeah, instead of using Patreon, they're using Subscribestar because it is more NSFW friendly. So if you didn't hear or didn't know, certain websites, certain pay processor people, things like PayPal, do not like that type of content. And if they find out that you're making that type of content or that your content is even tangentially related to that, they sort of nick your access to it and just delete your accounts or just keep your money in the case of like PayPal. So Subscribestar is like an alternate method for some content creators and like, you know, the Goodnight Fellowship, for example, to be able to publish their stuff and, you know, put in like a little subscription model to it. So like if you know some Patreon creator that is having some trouble with that, then, you know, they could consider Subscribestar. But yeah. Anyways, back to the story. So that was the first story. And it did give vaguely supernatural and also vaguely like real life, you know, stalker vibes. I mean, it could also have been a supernatural stalker. And it did give sort of like maybe not if it was like a fairy, but maybe um something in the woods. Something that saw the girl go into the woods, saw her like leave that thing, and then probably like wonder like, oh, what's this thing? And then, or maybe somebody that is aware of the geocaching thing decided to use that as an opportunity to stalk people. And maybe it was sort of like um maybe it was a serial killer who is using the geocaches as a way to stalk people, and then left like these weird little fake candies that had maybe like a oh my god, I know the word. Why can't I say it? A well, like a tracking bug basically in the fake candy. And as soon as he saw that somebody took it, he's like, "Oh, well, I'm going to keep following these people to see where they go." But, they lost them, and maybe the guy's like, "Oh, maybe I got found out, so I'll just keep traveling." And maybe the traveling coordinates that the girl was seeing were actually where all the places that the serial killer was, going to. This is just a theory, a game theory. It could have just been something else. Who knows? Maybe they dropped the bug at somebody else's um geocache, and then, you know, the cache was just running around or something. I don't know. But what do you think of that story, and also of this sort of storytelling model where the visual novel is the people coming together to tell their own little horror stories that are going to be maybe sometimes supernatural, maybe sometimes real, like the girl who is more into true crime, and the guy who's more into like the supernatural or like cryptids and stuff like that. Um but yeah, like, are you excited to see these stories? Also, you may have noticed um the reading, because I am not able to, I don't have access to the music and then like the script files or anything like that. I'm just sort of gonna do like some really quick editing here and there. But you're gonna see where like I make my mistakes. That usually happens with other visual novels too, where I'll make a mistake, then I'll have to click the page up or page down button so that I can just redo the line, and then, when I'm editing it, I'm putting in the music that the visual novel is using at the time to cover up the mistake. Um, so it always seems that it's like a seamless take when I'm recording, but it's not. Right here with this visual novel, I guess you'll be able to see how me recording works. All the little mistakes, the words incorrectly pronounced, or things like that. But yeah. Anyways, but yeah. I am excited because I do sort of like stories like these, like short little stories like these. And this is a novel approach to storytelling, I guess, at least in the way that we are used to it with like visual novels. Anyway, so aside from them just telling their own little stories, something is happening though. Something will be happening with the characters, just so you know. It isn't just them telling stories, it's gonna be more than that. But anyway, so yeah. Thank you all for watching / listening. If you would like to play 18 Mile Hike or stay up to date with it, I will be posting a link down in the description, as well as... Actually, I don't know if I can put the subscribe star. I'll put it once. If YouTube doesn't say anything, I'll leave it. But yeah. Also, in case you want to become a channel member, that link will be down in the description, as well as... it's technically a feature already of YouTube, but like some people said that they didn't see the little button saying if you want to become a channel member. So I post a link down in the description. But yeah, that will be down in the description in case you want to support the channel and, watch these videos as they're scheduled. But yeah, also Ko-fi in case you want to support me through there. If you can't subscribe to become a channel member, you can just throw money at me over there. I was playing with the idea of trying to figure out if I could give access to the videos through Ko-fi, but I don't think I can. I mean, I technically could, but that would... I don't know how I would manage that. I'll try to figure it out, just in case. But also, Throne. I do have books on there. There are a lot of books. Some of them are a little expensive, but some of them are cheaper. But yeah, anyway, so don't feel the need to do that. I do appreciate it though. I do want to grow a collection of books. Also, you can buy me random stuff from Amazon. Candy. I like candy. I like food. I am very food motivated. But yeah, so I guess that's it for now, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye.